What is the lesson to be learned from October 7th? What is your take home? What is the message that should reverberate within us and that we can live with something that would be positive? Even though it's horrific, but there's something that we have to take with us that's positive. Let's listen in to Douglas Murray, and on the other side, I have something more to share.
But one of the things that really has inspired me in the last year and a half has been that for Israel, that question has been answered, because you see, all of the things we say about the young generation in Britain or America, you do all these polls, and we all comment on them. You see these polls that come out saying, if you're British and you're 18 to 40, which is, the age group that fought in World Wars I and II, that age group in the UK, would you be willing to fight for your country? And, you see these polls, and I mean, they all have bewildering replies, like what was a recent one? The fact, like, the vast majority of people in Britain, young people, said they wouldn't fight for their country, even in an existential conflict. By the way, there was one recently that said, I think 10% of young people said that they couldn't because they were looking after someone.
I thought you were going to say 10% couldn't because they've got ADHD.
No. Can you imagine? No, I'd like to fight for my country's survival.
I'd like to shoot the German, but look.
But I am looking after my nan.
Yeah. Because your nan is going to be fine once the evil hordes have run over your society.
Anyway, I mean, there's also bewildering stuff like this has come up in recent years. When the war in Ukraine started, when the Russian invasion, there was polls of American people of fighting age, also found, wouldn't be willing to fight for their country, would flee, and all that sort of things. I mean, it's all bewildering, and of course, there's this thing of, like, actually, what do those polls mean? America hasn't had a land invasion, since the founding. I mean, it's it's inconceivable to an average American that the Vladimir Putin's army would land in California and start fighting, and it's the same with young Brits and Western Europeans and so on. It gets a little different the further east you go in Europe now. But all that stuff is inconceivable. There's a long-winded way to just say that the interesting thing is that the same doubts existed in Israel until the 7th. The young Israelis were thought very often by their elders, people who fought after the invasions by the Arabs in 67 and 73, there was this perception that the young Israelis were weak, were just wanted to party in Tel Aviv. They just wanted to be on Instagram and TikTok and all these sort of things. And then that proved to be flat out wrong. And in the last year and a bit, when I've been embedded with the IDF in Gaza and Lebanon and elsewhere, I've been just enormously inspired by them. This will sound bewildering to some people listening who have read totally false information about what these soldiers do, but their homeland was attacked, their families were attacked, their relatives and friends were murdered and slaughtered, and 250 taken hostage by the terrorists. Which, if you extrapolate that number out to America in terms of population, would be 10,000 Americans being taken hostage in one day. So this happened to their people, to their family, their friends, their nation, their country. And the reservists who were called up, the over request of soldiers to return to service, there was 130% re-enlistment rates after the 7th. People I record in the book flying back from around the world, from holiday or anything like, just getting on the first plane, getting back and, being in uniform within 48 hours. Just story after story of young men and women who just rushed to the front and spent, in some of their cases, the next year fighting, and in really terrible circumstances, but with amazing results. And I think, I mean, for me, it's been unbelievably inspiring to see them at work, because this is a demonstration that even a generation that is thought to be weak can show its mettle at the moment of trial. And I think, you know, when I look at the people in the West, and obviously this is one of the things that the book is about, is when I look at the people in the West of their age, what the hell are you doing? You know, I mean, I've seen young female soldiers, you know, 19, 20, and remarkable young people. And I sort of think, do you know that your contemporaries in New York are busily eating Oreo cookies in a tent in the middle of some godforsaken campus and being educated into idiocy? And they are ignoramuses, and you're a person, you're a real person and a hero. And I suppose there's a sort of one of the questions in the book is like, who do you want to admire? Who do you want to turn to? The person who wants to cosplay being Hamas in Colombia, or a young man of 19 who manages to kill Sinwar?
Wow. There's a beautiful teachings based on a verse in the Torah that when you take an olive and you want to take oil to illuminate the candelabra, the menorah, that is to illuminate the world. So you got to squeeze it. And when you squeeze it, the verse says, it doesn't produce merely light, but it produces the luminary from within. So the teachings, as our dear Rebbe taught us, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when you squeeze the Jew, put them in a tight situation, October 7th, what comes out is the best juices that there are, the best of them. And not just that they become a light, but they become a source of light, a luminary. Part of the luminary, of course, is getting rid of darkness by killing Sinwar. Exactly. That's part of it. That's on the one side of it, of course. On the other side is, of course, having compassion and care, which you see that in the soldiers. Unreal. The devotion, real devotion. Devotion to rid the world of evil and to nurture the goodness that's here, to nurture the beauty, the godliness that exists here in young people. Go a step further. Who's the most squeezed of all? Are the hostages. And the stories that come out one after the other on how did they deal with being in such a situation where they are a complete victim of their circumstance, where they are completely oppressed, which is true. But how do they deal with it? They were squeezed. Olive came out from the oil, came out, the best oil. When you put oil into water, it rises to the top. When you squeeze the Jew, you squeeze those hostages. What did they do? They prayed. They kept the Sabbath. They tried to keep kosher. They learned Torah. They held strong. Did all of them do it? No. That one of them did it is amazing. That many of them did it, that they held strong with their faith. They held strong to their commitment to Jewish living as under their circumstances as best that they could. Is unreal. That's a lesson to take out from October 7th. The Jewish people are an eternal people, because when we get squeezed, when on October 7th happens to us, the best comes out of us. So much so that we become a source of light, not just illumination, but the source of light, not just for our surroundings, but for the world around us, for the entire world. That's the real message. What are your thoughts? You want to hear more about this kind of message? Of how in your life you could be squeezed? You could be going through horrific challenges, but that brings out the best in you? Learn from the Tanya every morning, Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live here on YouTube, Tanya Rabbi, youtube.com/Tanya Rabbi. Or you can always pick it up afterwards. Here on YouTube and many other platforms. Come and join me.